Hey guys! Today we will take a closer look at the new and improved Chebyshev oscillator from Squinky Labs. It's a waveshaper oscillator and an harmonic oscillator, and it can process external signals as well, and it's lots of fun, so let's start. Okay, so here it is, the new and improved Chebyshev oscillator. It recently got updated with very nice new features, so let's really have a look at all of its features and build a patch from scratch with this oscillator. On the left we have the 10 waveshapers, which will change the shape of the waveform, which is a basic sine wave as you can see on the scope, and by shaping the wave we can add harmonics or overtones. The first knob is the fundamental frequency, and each knob after that will add the next harmonic in the harmonic series. So here we have our sine wave, this is the first harmonic. You can see also the shape changing on the scope. Second one, third harmonic, and so on, up to the last one. Then we have the main controllers section. We can change the octave, and it goes all the way down to LFO territories. We can tune the oscillator by semitones to a different bass note. And this knob has a range of 11 semitones. And we can also fine-tune the oscillator. And this knob has a range of 1 semitone. We have two FM inputs, the mod input, which is exponential FM, which is actually just like using the volt per octave input, but with dedicated attenuation. And this is great for adding vibrato to the sound. And we also have the linear FM input, which is actually through zero linear FM, which is perfect for creating those nice, rich FM sounds. Then we have the fold/clip switch, where we can choose how the gain knob will affect the sound by folding it, or by clipping it. And the gain knob has a CV input with a dedicated attenuverter, and there is another input dedicated for use with envelope generators. We also have the rise and fall knobs, which will control the way the waveshapers will behave when being modulated, and we will see how this works later in the video. And next to the gain knob, we have the even, slope and odd knobs, all with dedicated CV inputs and attenuverters. And actually, before we take a look at what those knobs are doing, let's have a quick look at the preset button on the lower left corner. And let's first change a few of the waveshapers. So there are 3 presets available for the 10 waveshapers in Chebyshev. By clicking the button once, we go back to the initialized state. By clicking it another time, all the waveshapers are at maximum. And another click will bring the waveshapers to the last state we set them to. So let's bring all of the waveshapers to maximum. And have a look at the even, slope and odd functions. The even knob will decrease the level of the even harmonics only. The odd knob will decrease the level of the odd harmonics only. And the slope will gradually filter the higher harmonics, acting a bit like a low-pass filter. Then in the lower section we have all the different inputs and the main output, And we also have the external input where we can choose an external source and process it inside Chebyshev. So let's really start building a patch and see all those lovely features in action. Okay, so let's start by looking at the rise and fall functions, which will control how the harmonics will behave when being modulated. So first of all, when connecting something to the harmonics CV inputs, the respective knobs will act as attenuators and will define the maximum value, so don't forget to use them. And let's really modulate the different harmonics, and for this I will use another module from Squinky Labs. It's called Gray Code. Gray Code is a sort of a semi-random clock divider built out of 8 bits, and it has two modes: standard, where the lower bits change more often than the high ones, and balanced, where all the bits change the same more or less, and it has also a mix output that will add all active bits together and create a sort of a random modulation source. So let's use our main clock to run Gray Code and modulate the different harmonics. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can also use the mix output to modulate the last harmonic. And again, let's open the attenuators to let the signal through and modulate the harmonics. Let's do this for all of them. And before we take a listen, I will lower the rise and fall functions so we can see exactly what they are doing. So let's connect this to the mixer. Let's lower the octaves a bit, maybe something like this. So now you can hear how the harmonics are being modulated. And you can hear those clicks also. If I add a scope, you can see that what we get out of the Gray Code module is a sort of a random clock, let's say, or gates, or pulse wave. And what we can do with the rise and fall, we can create a sort of a slew limiting or lag to convert. Which one was it? Let's see, let's take the first one. To convert this kind of signal to something like this, more smooth. You can see the red trace here. And then change the way the harmonics are being modulated. So let's get rid of this. And let's take the rise and fall time a bit up. So now we have smoother modulation, not stepwise modulation. Very nice. Okay, so now we have a nice sound, and let's create a sequence. I will use the grid sequencer from JW. Let's move everything here. Let's run the sequencer with a multiplied clock. I have here a clock multiplied by 2. And let's send this to Chebyshev. Lower the range. Let's change the scale to F minor. And randomize the notes. Very nice. Now what we can also do is trigger the random note function with the divided clock. I have here a clock divided by 16. This can go to the trigger input of the random notes function. So the sequence will change over time. Very nice. Now we can also use an envelope generator to control the gain of Chebyshev. So let's use Rampage. And let's trigger it with our sequencer, with the gate output of the sequencer. And send this envelope to the envelope generator input of Chebyshev. Let's change also the fall time a bit. More rise time. Something like this maybe. Now we can use part B of Rampage to modulate the gain function and clip the signal. So let's turn part B into a looping envelope. What we have to do is turn cycle on and trigger it once, and now it will loop. Let's take the rise and fall times all the way up and use output B to modulate the gain. So let's take the gain a bit down and then raise or open the attenuator just when it starts clipping. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so we have lots of movement now. And let's add some atmosphere and texture by using clouds for mutable instruments or the texture synthesizer from audible instruments. I will use another Chebyshev oscillator. But this time I will send the first Chebyshev to its external input. So we have the actual sound going into this Chebyshev, and we can now use it as a wave shaper to shape the signal coming in from the first oscillator. So let's modulate some of the harmonics of this oscillator, and we will use this time the 8FO from Bog Audio. Let's make some space here. Very nice. Now the 8FO is also perfect for this, for modulating Chebyshev, because it has 8 different outputs, 8 different phases of the same oscillator. So let's see, let's turn this to slow, so we have an LFO, lower the frequency a bit. Let's push the offset all the way up, so we have a unipolar signal. And let's modulate 7 harmonics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And of course, open the attenuators. We shall not forget to open the attenuators. Something like this, maybe. And let's use the last output to modulate the gain function. Okay, and send this to clouds. And then let's send clouds already to the mixer and start messing around with it. So first of all, what we can do, we can trigger the freeze function of clouds by using one of the outputs of gray code. So let's use the first one, for example. Now let's take the texture all the way up, so the sound is nice and smeared. And the blend also all the way up. And the spread also, and some feedback, and reverb also all the way up. What we can also do is take the pitch all the way up also to get a sort of a shimmer reverb effect. And let's trigger the grain generation by using the trigger input here, and we will use the gate output of our sequencer. So now it's starting. Let's take the octave maybe one down here. Okay, very nice. Now we got a nice texture. Let's add another voice, and this time I will use the same signal that comes out of the second Chebyshev to modulate the pitch of yet another Chebyshev. So let's add another oscillator. Very nice. And for this we will use sample and hold. So let's use kinks. Again, mutable instruments or utilities from audible instruments. Now we will sample, or we will send the signal from the second oscillator to the input of kinks. So it will sample this signal. And let's use a multiplied clock to trigger the sample and hold. I have here clocked multiplied by 4. So every time the sample and hold unit is receiving a trigger, it will sample the second oscillator. And now we will want to attenuate this signal quite a bit. So let's use a VCA, send this signal to the VCA and lower or close it almost all the way down. And we will also want to quantize this signal. So let's use quantum from ML and send this signal to quantum. And let's set just 4 notes of a minor scale. It doesn't matter because here we can change the fundamental note of Chebyshev. So let's use F because we are in F minor, and send this signal to the volt per octave input of Chebyshev. And let's see what we've got. Take the gain a bit up. So we can modulate the gain also. Let's do this with the 8FO. Let's take the first output, open the attenuator. And we can also utilize the linear FM input. So let's add the LFO from Bog Audio, which can go also to audio rate levels. And let's send it first of all through a VCA because I will want to control the FM modulation depth. So let's send the sine wave to the VCA, and let's first raise the frequency to about 400 Hz, somewhere here, and send this signal to the linear FM input. And let's modulate, let's modulate the VCA with the minimum output of Rampage. This output will output the minimum values from both A and B. And let's open the linear FM attenuator. Yes. Very nice. Okay, now we can also modulate some of its harmonics. So let's use another sample and hold module. This time it will be Brains from the Geodesics collection. I will just change the skin to the dark matter. And let's run the upper Brains with the same multiplied clock, the one that's multiplied by 4. And let's modulate a few harmonics. Let's see, the first one, second one, third one, and the fourth. Open the attenuators, of course. So now we have even more movement in the sound. Very nice. Okay, now let's add a nice bass to all of this. So I will add another Chebyshev. And by the way, something I wanted to show you is how CPU efficient this oscillator is. So I will activate the power meter, and you can see that it's really CPU efficient. It's really not so heavy on your computer, so you can use a couple of them or a few of them in your patches. So let's create a bass. And for this I will use kinks again. And I want to sample now the signal coming out from the grid sequencer. So let's send this signal to the input of kinks, of the sample and hold section of kinks. And let's use a much slower clock. So again, the one divided by 16. And this now can go directly to the oscillator because it's coming from the sequencer, and this is already quantized and attenuated, so we don't need to quantize it again. Very nice. Now let's see. Let's first of all send it to the mixer, see how it sounds like. Lower the octaves a bit. Oh yeah. And let's modulate also some of the harmonics of this oscillator. So let's see, let's clock the lower brains again with a divided clock, divided by 16. And let's change the range also. of brains, so this side will output 0 to positive 2 volts. And let's modulate the first 3 harmonics. And of course open the attenuators. And let's set a longer rise and fall times for the modulation. And let's modulate also the gain function here, again with the 8FO. Let's use the last output this time, open the attenuator. And let's use another output here from the 8FO to modulate the slope. Something like this maybe. This voice is a bit too high. Yes. Okay, so we have a nice moving bass to connect everything together, and you've noticed that I used the 8FO a lot. And I like doing this using the same modulation source for a few different voices because they sound somehow coherent, somehow connected. Okay guys, and that was it. That was Chebyshev. Of course, there is a lot more you can do with it, so be sure to check it out the next time you start a patch. Like always, there will be a link in the description to this patch. Feel free to download it and have a closer look. This sounds really nice. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell. And have a good one.